Okay, we're back. We're live. We're here. I'm Jay Fidel. Happy to be here on a given Thursday, the start of our programming day, and we're doing this as Agritech in Hawaii. We do that from time to study agriculture, particularly diversified agriculture in Hawaii. And we have a really terrific guest for that discussion today. It's John Farias, who has been in and following agriculture for most of his adult life, which is something. He was the chair of the Board of Agriculture during the, Burns and Ariyoshi administration in the 70s and into, well, you tell us what years, John.
Yeah, 74 to 81. Then I went into other things, including submarines.
That's another show.
That's right.
So, you know, the most interesting thing is that John has really stayed with agriculture in many ways, and he's with agriculture now. And I'll tell you what's on his card. It's legacy trees. So one of the things we're going to talk about in our quest for signs of diversified agriculture is legacy trees. But John, tell us, you know, why and how you got involved in the Board of Agriculture back in the 70s. And what it meant then, and how it moved under you.
Well, I went to work for government on the Big Island in 1966 in the Economic Development Department, which became the Department of Research and Development. And that's the time that sugar was just folding. It started from one end of the top end of the Big Island in Kohala, and it just rolled down the state, the island, and just going after one after the other, closing up their farms. And it was extremely difficult to live through because presumably my role was to try to create the economy and the things going downhill. And then Governor Burns put me on the Board of Regents in 68, 69, and that was further to trying to explore the possibilities of a third and fourth year campus university in Hilo, which we did.
Came true, yeah.
And the Governor Burns really supported, and of course Mayor Kimura was very, very supportive of that. And, so we got that going, and then Governor Ariyoshi just got elected in '74. I had been a councilman on the Big Island, and
you're from Hilo originally.
Yes.
I can always tell the Hilo people. They're different somehow.
Thank you. I hope it's positive.
Yeah, it is.
But I was born in the country a little bit, a place called Papaico, and that was just, you know, in sugar country. So you have that, you're growing up with that kind of stuff, and you just feel that need for it in the future. And then after I became the chairman of Ag, as the chairman of Ag, it was a very stressful job, because you've got to, you know that your whole agriculture thing is going, the Big Ag, and pineapple was going, and they were just moving elsewhere. Pineapple, sugar was just closing down because they couldn't afford the monies they received and selling the cane, and plus the funds that the U.S. gave for raising cane. It wasn't enough, and they had land that they can develop other than raising cane. And so that went south, and then pineapple took the technology and the species, the varieties from Hawaii that the University of Hawaii helped develop. They went to Costa Rica, they went to other places, and there was Hawaii. No pineapple, it is some pineapple for the tourist and local consumption, and sugar was just going downhill.
So this is very disruptive for the state. They had all these people who had relied for generations on a living from the plantations, and now they had to find work, and there was really not work waiting for them. And you had, you know, this huge juggernaut of business activity coming to a grinding halt all within a few years.
That's right. And it was very hard going to meetings and full, you know, grown men actually tearing, asking, where do we do? What are our possibilities? And you realize that we have nothing at that scale at that present time, and we had to think of all kind of options. So we did that, and it was extremely stressful.
I remember some of the jury rig businesses that were established, particularly on the Kohala coast.
That's right.
There was something called plastics, Kohala Plastics, I
That's
think
right.
it was.
That's right.
And there was a biogenics. It
That's
was
right.
it was
That's
kind of
right. That's right.
some kind of off the path type agricultural activity.
That's right.
And then there was the wood chip, and the Ohio forests were being, now they were being, exported through Japan for newsprint and the like. Were you involved in any of that?
Well, when I stepped in, most of these things were in place. And I spent a whole day with the banking exec, Bank of Hawaii exec, and we're in business by business, and I just shook my head and said, this cannot fly. You cannot press a little piece of plastic thing and say this is going to sell for a nickel, and you just spend a half hour trying to get that. It's not going to work. The economics, cattle was the same thing. It was just not worth it. And it was just, but the nursery that we underwritten is today the biggest nursery in the state of Hawaii.
Where is that now? Is this
This is in
Kohala?
Kohala. The biggest nursery of planting. We export constantly out of there, and that is the most successful business in Hawaii. But they want to be low key, and that's fine.
What about, you had the Parker Ranch. I mean, it was a huge operation, tens of thousands of acres, one of the biggest ranches in the country. And it stayed. I mean, through that period anyway. Later on, it got dismantled, but it stayed through that period. What was the dynamic there?
Well, first of all, they owned the land, and they had long-term leases with the state, and they had long-term leases with other large landowners, and they had tremendous control of that region. They were, in effect, running the slaughterhouse here on Oahu and the feedlot. And they decided one time we were going to close up things, and both the slaughterhouse and the feedlot in Eva got closed down, and so the other people couldn't. You either raise the animal sell it as it is, or send it to the mainland. An interesting thing now is we send animals to the mainland, pay the freight, and they send meat to us, and we pay the freight too. That is, you kind of scratch your head.
Doesn't work very well.
But it has been for many years.
Yeah.
And that's why today we've got tremendous stress with raising feed for cattle and hogs, and chickens, and milk.
Because we have to bring all the feed in.
That's what stopped us. The curves are all downhill, and the consumption is very little for local production.
Yeah.
But I think it's going to change. I think we're going to find more and more people say, why don't we raise some form of feed for the animals? Because we got the land still preserved. But once that land, as you mentioned on Oahu, once that land starts to go into urbanization and other things, you can't bring it back.
Yeah.
So Neighbor Island still has a tremendous opportunity.
Yeah. And that means not only Big Island, but Maui has open land to some extent, and certainly Kauai has open land.
That's right.
There's sugar, and it's still there. So much of it basically untouched since then. But to go to that point, I mean, once you start carving that land up and putting infrastructure in, it's hard to get it back to a natural state to do agriculture.
That's true, because the land gets to be rezoned, and it's got to be sold to different sources or different owners, and you just can't go
Can't go
take
back.
it away.
Can't go home again.
Yeah.
So, okay, you've followed all of this since then, and you've seen, either directly or maybe as an observer, you've seen how many, 30, 40 years really, of attempts to build diversified agriculture.
That's right.
And here we are, sitting here in the month of March 2015, and you can't point to any big diversified agriculture going on in the state.
No, you can't. No, you can't. That's why we have to look at broader areas. A few of us got together and created Blue Revolution Hawaii, and you had some.
Yeah. Benny
feedback.
Ron was on the show last week to talk about that.
And that had involved Dr. Matsuda, Faji Matsuda of the university, and Dr. Pat Takahashi and others.
So tell us what it is.
Well, it's a concept to find out what we can do in the ocean to produce energy and feed, and have a sort of a huge platform out there And the area that would probably be best, we thought would be about 200 miles west of South Point on the Big Island. And the water evidently is best there. And producing out of energy, the key is to get that energy out of OTEC, Ocean Thermal Energy Conversion. And that's the key. The economics of that deal will be to find efficiencies of scale on OTEC. Otherwise,
Or any renewable, right?
Oh, yeah.
Any renewable energy is critical for diversified agriculture.
Yes, that's true.
So we really have to build that. I mean, if you're going at 50 cents a kilowatt hour, you can't do agriculture. That's the end of that. That's right. Richard Haas' thing. You know, he has dams and all that, water power on his land, the farm in Hamakua. And he has all kinds of PV and other ways to get cheaper energy. Mm-hmm. But if you have to rely on oil and oil prices, you can't do. So that's why OTEC is so important. I'd like to take a moment and talk about OTEC for a minute, because I know you were involved at the outset of OTEC before they, ever knew about NELHA.
That's
Can
right.
you talk about that?
That's right. Well, when I was a regent of the university and director of research and development for the Big Island, a couple of professors came to see me. The assistant dean of the College of Engineering was one of them, and he said, "We'd like to do an OTEC project here. Would you like to sponsor it?" I said, "What's an OTEC project?" So he spelled it out. I thought it was a good idea, and he did the homework and presented the package to me. I said, "Now you've got to sign it, but we've got to find the land." So, well, that's a good idea, so I went to see Governor Burns. And Governor Burns consulted with Dr. Matsuda, who is in charge of the transportation at that time, mm-hmm. and gave us the land right on the tip, Keahole Tip, right next to the airport.
That's the site of NELHA right now.
That's it. And we started.
That's a Natural Energy Laboratory of Hawaii Authority.
That's right.
And the operative term there, lest we forget, because we have forgotten so much, is energy, Natural Energy Lab.
That's right.
That's how it all started.
That's right. And then one thing led to another, and it's more and more stuff. And Dr. Craven stepped in, and Dr. Takahashi, and a lot of the university types, and it's there. But the land, again, is finite in that area, because there's the highway and there's another owner of the land and the airport on one side, and that's what we have left. But there are other opportunities with that.
We're going to talk about them right after this break.
Okay.
John Farias, a former chair of the Board of Agriculture in the state of Hawaii in the 70s. We're talking about agri-tech in Hawaii today. We're talking about new technology for agriculture in Hawaii. We'll be right back after this short break.
Aloha, I'm Kili'i Akina, president of the Grassroot Institute and host on Ehana Kako, a weekly program on the ThinkTech Hawaii broadcast network. Ehana Kako means let's work together. Think of the sad alternative, let's not work together. Here in Hawaii, with all of our diversity and the richness of the people, it's important for us to come together around issues on the basis of what's right and what's good and what's going to serve the common good. And that's what we try to do at Ehana Kako. Every week, we interview movers and shakers, people in government, business, and other sectors of society to talk about how to create together a better government, economy, a better world here in Hawaii that can bless the rest of the world. I thank you for your attention to ThinkTech Hawaii, and we look forward to seeing you every Monday, 2 to 3 p.m. on the ThinkTech Hawaii Broadcast Network. We're Ehana Kako, and we wish you well. Aloha.
We're back. We're live. I'm Jay Fidel here on the ThinkTech series. Today we're talking about agri-tech in Hawaii, one of our favorite topics because we believe that Hawaii cannot be sustainable without it. John Farias is our guest, is our honored guest. He was the chair of the Board of Agriculture when I first started practicing law, and I knew him then. I don't know if you remember, John. We had matters together.
1975.
Yep. Anyway, so we're talking about new tech for agriculture in Hawaii, and I want to take the time to move on to that because now, I don't know if you could say it's a turning point, but now the present is so important that we figure out how to do this. Hawaii needs to be sustainable, and agriculture is a key element to that. And we've been crossing the desert, so to speak, for a long time, and now we need to take affirmative steps. So what do we have today, John? What is the landscape, those glimmering hopes out there on the possibilities of diversified agriculture?
Well, I'm involved for one thing that legacy of trees, and Hawaiian trees, specifically in koa. We've developed that over here, and there's a group out in the Big Island already raising that. And it's fascinating because nobody in the past has treated koa, the finest wood, as the way it has been looked at now. And that's
as a product, as koa wood product.
That's right. But this would be a saving of the koa forest, a reforestation of koa, except there's attrition of the tree at one point. So many trees per acre will be able to be cut off, because the trees would have to be cut off. And that gets to be a koa that could be utilized for furniture and everything else.
And we're short of that now. You always hear that from the furniture makers.
That's right. Many years ago, again, when I was in Director of Agriculture, Research and Development in Hilo, was asked to come to the furniture show in LA and bring some products of koa to LA, which we did with a group out of here in Honolulu.
I'm sure they loved it.
It was fantastic. We couldn't raise enough koa, have enough koa to form the demand up in LA, and this was in 1977, 78. I'm sorry, make it 1967 or 68.
Yeah.
And it was beautiful work done, but you just couldn't get the mill. Department of Planning and Economic Development and the feds put a mill into Hilo area, and we just couldn't get the supply enough and the mill was closed about 1972.
Yeah, not enough work.
Not enough work. So you know it's coming, but it's a slow move.
Well, let's talk about koa for a minute. I mean, koa could be exported all day.
That's right.
And it's a wood, so it doesn't create an export regulation problem. You just put it on a ship and take it where you want.
Right.
And it's beautiful wood. And there are indigenous places where you could grow lots and lots of koa.
Right.
But I'm guessing here, but I am guessing that there is no systematic reforestation project going on any of that land to actually grow new koa trees.
We have been discussing that very concept with the state already. And there is already a procedure or a process in mind. And I'd like you to meet the principles of that and perhaps bring one of them over here who's extremely brilliant and working out of Hamakua Coast on the Big Island. I referred the land to them about 7 years ago, and they did get the land. It's a private from a ranch, and now we're talking to the state about these concepts. So I see that as a great opportunity.
Clearly.
Just fantastic.
Clearly. You know, years ago, to refer back to the 70s, there was Ohia forests up there, Mauka of Hamakua.
That's right.
Near Honaka,
right,
as I recall. And lots of trees up there, and we were chopping them down and sending them out the port of Kauai High, either in large pieces or as wood chips, sending them to Japan for various things. I mean, furniture or wood chips were used for newsprint and all that. And it was a business. It was one of those replacement businesses for the plantations. Unfortunately, it stopped. There was a fire at one point in the port of Kauai High, this huge wood chip pile, you know, it was like 10 stories high, and it burned to the ground. It was really too bad. But we didn't really follow through on that. And
that's right.
The point is that we have proven that the Big Island is suited for forestry, for production of wood and wood products, and we can do that. We know we can do that.
OG Paper Company were the company involved in that, and they were satisfied going in, but for some reason or other after that they just closed up and left, and that's too bad, because I think working out of Kauai would have been continually be a very exciting project.
It's a great port.
But we also learned about the process that needs to be looked at, or processes that need to be looked at
Yeah.
with this type of industry.
Yeah.
I do like the concept of shipping logs, even like with if koi. You don't have to worry about logs being refrigerated from here to the mainland or from here to anywhere else. It can go on into containers, and it can be. All the measures of success with shipping can be imbued in that.
Yeah.
So I see potential there.
Well, tell us now. Your business card, this one anyway, says, "I love this. Your toll-free number is Reforest." And the name of the company and the website is legacytrees.org. So what's the plan there?
Well, it's a not-for-profit 501c3, and we're excited about raising capital to go into the co-development concept. We know the technology that, and you'll meet with the individual of Jeff Dunster is his name. I think he's a fine gentleman and very intelligent, and he's not afraid to invest into Hawaii. Mm-hmm. So you'll be meeting that person. But I think we have the right. My sense of it, we have the right things happening. So that is very exciting about it.
It is very exciting.
We've already presented the concept to the states.
It's a whole new idea for agriculture for Hawaii.
Yes.
And it's a long in coming, really.
Yes. And the idea of planting a koa tree with a Rfid chip in the ground.
Talk about that. How does that work?
It works through the satellite, and it's a little chip that goes into a sliver of or a piece of plastic, and when the tree is planted and the thing's in the ground, that tree is identified by the satellite. And you can go wherever you are in the world. You just Google your computer, and you'll find your tree, because you'll have the cross grids.
Sort of like Google Earth.
Exactly, yeah.
You'll be able to push a button and it will take you right to your own tree.
It is Google Earth, and it's amazing. I've got one tree there, and I find it's, except we've got to redo it because the cloud cover was not very good. But it's going to be refined constantly. It'll go through a process that'll be, I think, worldwide potential.
It's a beautiful idea in many ways. I mean, it has resonance across the centuries. Yeah. Johnny Appleseed, there's a Johnny Appleseed notion here. Everybody loves a tree. I mean, what was that great poem about a tree? And I was telling you when we met earlier today about the Jewish National Fund, JNF. I grew up in that, and my whole community grew up in that. And the idea was that for a few bucks, even a few bucks that a kid could afford, you could plant a tree and make the desert bloom in Israel. And as a result, over how many years since then, 50, 60, 70 years, the desert has bloomed in Israel. There are places in Israel which are lush agricultural spots.
That's right.
And it's all because of planting trees and creating water tables out of desert. This is one of the most wonderful things we can do for the planet, I think. And so you're really involved in that, and you could change the topography of Hawaii.
Yes.
You could change the economy of Hawaii.
That's a big order, but it's a tremendous challenge. We've already been advised by the land deal in our office that if the trees are planted, we call that the cherry guava, the nuisance trees that once the birds pick up this thing, you can never stop it, which is thousands of acres up on the Big Island that is not, it's for nothing. So if you plant the trees, it just suppresses we call it vives, but it's like little strawberry guavas, and it'll suppress it. Now this is something that the state must look at, because you can't go out there with just to poison these trees, because animals will be eating it. Mm-hmm. So you've got to just suppress the growth of the trees by a canopy, which the koa will produce. It's exciting. It's exciting. It handles a big problem with the state.
And I love the idea of the RFID chip in the tree. It reminds me of, this is also going back, you could, back in the 70s, you could buy an inch of Waikiki. They would give you an actual deed to an inch of Waikiki. And for this, you would pay $10 and put it was colorful and everything. Just like the certificate you got from the Jewish National Fund, colorful certificate saying you had planted a tree, and this is the forest that was located. And we can do better now with the chips, but you could actually refer back to your tree and your inch in Waikiki, and now your particular tree. And what this means, I think, really, is an investment. So if you came to me as a Hawaii resident and said, Jay, we'd like you to plant a tree. We'd like you to invest in a tree. Maybe under that crowdfunding statute or bill that is now moving through the legislature, that if passed would allow for an investment of up to $1,000 in a company that is less than $1 million. And so for an intrastate offering. So I could even invest in equity, or I could invest in a kind of what do you want to call it, non-legal, non-equity type investment in my tree. And I could be part of the new agriculture in Hawaii. And I would really like to do that. I would like to show you, John, that I care about the future of Hawaii.
That's right.
I will plant a tree. I'll plant a number of trees. Put me on your list, John.
Okay, you want to go up next week? But no, it is happening. I'm not about to say the cost of that, but that would have to be come from the operational group over there. But yes, it is happening. We already have tourists agreed to come up from either Kona or Hilo, and basically Japanese tourists, and they just love it. And so it's an amazing thing that's happening. We're going to see more and more possibilities just being explored by other creative ideas.
Yeah, it's all about creative ideas. And John is having creative ideas, and it's wonderful. He has never stopped. John Farias, he's the director of Legacy, a director or the director?
There are four of us.
One of four directors of LegacyTrees.org. And he's the former chair of the Board of Agriculture back in the 70s. And here we are on Agritech in Hawaii, talking about new technology for new agriculture in Hawaii. We're having such a good time with John. We'll be right back.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Andrew Howard. I'm an astronomer at the Institute for Astronomy at the University of Hawaii up in Manoa. I'd like to tell you about the annual open house that we're having. This year it is on April 6th, 11 to 4 p.m. It's an all ages event, kids, grown-ups, even people in between, everyone is welcome. We have a lot of really fun activities. You get to meet astronomers, look at yourself in an infrared camera, play with Legos, make robots, look at videos. You can even some of the kids like to make comets out of gravel and snow. Even adults like to do that too. You'll be able to look at the sun with a solar camera safely. It's really a great activity. We do this every year in April, and I hope to see you this year. Thanks.
We're back, we're live. We're here with John Farias, a former chair of the Board of Agriculture of the state of Hawaii, talking about agritech in Hawaii. That is specifically the new tech that's going to make for new agriculture in Hawaii right now. So, before I think we agreed that not enough was happening in the revitalization of diversified agriculture in Hawaii. And I asked you about the landscape as it exists. But what is happening in areas other than, the forests, the legacy trees? What is happening in, for example, aquaculture, which is a new high-tech possibility? It's only existed really available to the entrepreneur for the past 10 or 15 years. How are we doing, and what can we do?
We will be doing very well on this. The university, College of Trop Ag, you met Ben and Ron, they're doing some work on this, and the State Department of Agriculture now, they're doing some very progressive work on this, and we're finding out that we can bring in technology from U.S. mainland to produce fish, and I think that is very exciting for the production. We have instead of having to import all this stuff, we import about 92%, I think it's a little more than that, of what we consume. And it's risky to have a problem having the logistics of getting stuff here from the mainland, for instance, don't know how long Hawaii will suffer because we don't have the production. When I was in the Department of Agriculture, we plotted the curve from then to 2 years ago on all these foodstuffs that was raising in Hawaii, all the way from cattle, milk, dairies, chicken, eggs, you name it, and the feed cost was going up. Well, you know, then the economics is not going to work if you can't compete. So a lot of the industry went under, and the food produced here could not be consumed because the prices were a bit out of sight, not out of sight, and we just couldn't. We don't have our own feed for animals, so we're now doing a lot of work with the Department of Ag and the university of trying to get feed for these animals. Then, because we got the land in many areas, some have lost. Too bad we lost a lot of the prime sugar land, but you know that's past. So I think this aquaculture thing is starting to be a very sophisticated operation. We're working, and I'm working with someone in the Department of Agriculture in trying to get something like this put together. I think it'll be a very exciting prospect. I'm not at liberty to tell the technical stuff, but we can send the information to you.
We'd be interested in following it because we like to follow it.
Okay, good.
But let me offer you a thought that springs out of the discussion of aquaculture, especially open ocean aquaculture. It's not without controversy. There are some people who oppose it, including a group from Washington, D.C. It's not even really rooted in Hawaii, called, what is it? Air and Water Watch, I think it's called, or something like that. And these guys oppose open aquaculture here. They want to stop it for whatever their reasons are, which I don't believe are really scientific at all. And and that has jammed it up for some entrepreneurs because it's hard to get investment money if you're in controversy. At the same time, we have we've all seen all this legislative activity and controversy over GMOs, which has not stopped. As a matter of fact, I would say the needle is really running against science in that controversy. In general, it seems to me that people do not understand how important it is to adopt new technology for diversified agriculture. They fight with it. This is really too bad. How are we going to change public opinion to realize how important agriculture is to Hawaii's resilience?
As cruel as it sounds, sometimes economics will do that, because the production of food involving GMO will probably maintain a certain level of price increases, probably nominal, and you're going to find, as it is now, the non-GMO stuff, pricing is getting higher and higher. Demand. So at one point, you can see the things. People say, well, after these many years of paying a high price for milk or this or that or whatever, and others have sustained quite well with the other non-GMO stuff or GMO stuff. Then they're going to say, well, maybe this is the way we ought to get more realistic. Otherwise, there's a lot of fear. And, you know, fear is a tremendous, powerful
That's what
thing.
it plays on, yeah.
Yep. And scientifically, what I've read thus far, there's not really any problem with GMO. But the antis, you know, and I do constantly try to read up on that. Friends of mine are anti. So it's very unfortunate because you stop raising papayas over here, and we go down the tube with that.
The papayas are a big export crop.
Very big export product, and we put a good product.
Yes, we do. It's the most tasty papaya in the world.
That's right. And it's been, a lot of it has been invested, and it's a very successful operation. I eat a papaya every day, and it's all the papaya that comes from either, well, of course, this island too.
Yeah, it's all Dennis Gonsalves.
That is the stuff, sure.
He beat the ring spot virus back when, and it's
That's
been a
right.
huge
That's right.
success.
That's right.
Using GMOs per se. Another interesting issue about controversy over agriculture, where I think people are so misguided, is the idea about reopening a series of dairy farms. You know, right now, I don't think we actually, aside from the one on Kauai that seems to be operating, and there was one planned for the Big Island also, all funded by Piero Migliar and his foundation, is that people don't want to have a dairy farm next to them. It's the NIMBY thing, not in my backyard.
Right.
They don't like the smell of the animals and so forth.
Right.
It's really, this is not a GMO issue. No scientific argument can be, not even the strangest argument can be made. It's just the smell, I guess. We should all go back to the 30s when life was a whole bunch of smells. I don't know why people don't like that. It's a natural smell, but they say that it's not good for tourism. Give me a break. What do you think, John?
I think that will not stop. I think more people move in, and then they become owners of lands in their proximity to a dairy or to farming, and they don't like the odors that comes from the farm, if it's cattle or if it's hogs or if it's poultry, and so, or dust, or that sort of thing. So we grew up in the country of the Big Island, and we saw cane fires and dust and everything else, and it was just, that's what you had to live with.
It was a rich tapestry.
but the idea of too much carbon in the air was not too good an idea too.
Yeah.
And so that was settled. But no, I think that'll be a problem we've got to contend with. After a long time, we're going to see whether GMO or non-GMO works, and I think science is more and more saying, at least that which I find and I read up, was that it works. GMO works. Non-GMO is just go ahead and do your thing, and you can raise non-GMO products if you like, and eat it. It's fine.
It's if the state, as a matter of policy, decides, as it did many years ago, in your time, that agriculture was a strategic industry, and it was to be favored, then the state should not stop, go forward at every level, and do whatever it takes to build this industry. And then what you have though now is you have these factors that push back against that, and you have people who maybe forgot that agriculture is a critical industry for us. For example, the state has an important agricultural lands statute, which is not doing anything. I don't think it needs to be revamped and expanded. The state is the largest holder of land in the state, but it's not turning that land over to young farmers, mom and pop, husband and wife farmers who could farm the land and make a career on the land. The state is not offering it in any substantial way funding or tax incentives to young farmers. And so we're really not. It's really not a very forceful agenda. And I wonder what you think about the steps that government should, in an ideal world, take to make agriculture come back.
I think the school system is helping young people looking at agri-farming. And the University of Hawaii is doing, it's sort of resurging.
Sitar is alive and well.
That's right. And I think the Department of Agriculture is, unfortunately, some years ago, many of the inspectors were pulled out to save one of the other governors some money, and that lost a tremendous amount of need out there, and so that created a lot of the bugs that are starting to grow and so forth and so on. But it needs constant attention, and
yes.
It's extremely difficult. I like the University of Hawaii new tech transfer office.
Yes.
And we started to find that would be areas that will be looked not only for high-tech non-ag or there might be nexus at some point of activity. And I think we're starting to see more of that exchange. I'd like to see more involvement of the university, but the University of Hawaii is, and the neighbor islands are really doing some lot of work. The UH in Hilo, I think, is doing a tremendous amount of work in that aspect. As a matter of fact, they have a forestry group there, and that
you deal with, yeah.
that we'll be dealing with,
Yeah.
and diversification of agriculture. So it's becoming more and more understandable, and more need for, they realize more and more need for attention. But yet there's tremendous demand outside of that for, you know, the tourism and the other activity, and that also is needed.
You know, we have sort of competing demands for agricultural products. I mean, you spoke about, you know, koa for furniture. That's not food, although it's a very important export possibility. Talked about, we haven't talked about AKP, Aina Koa Pono, in Pahala, is it? That's where it was going to be located, which failed because they couldn't get approval for the PUC for energy. And then, of course, there's Hawaii biofuel, which is a very biodiesel, Hawaii biodiesel, which is a very successful operation. Yes. And now they have a lot of acreage under their control in the Big Island, generating biodiesel, which is great. But there's competing, well, my point is there are competing uses for the land. And I worry, John, that non-food uses may be making incursion on food uses. How do we allocate the land to the right mix?
We would probably have to get some legislative support on that sort of thing, because any department just can't say, well, you can't do that because but then it's in the Constitution that all agricultural land can be for what is agriculture or something like that. But work will be continually being considered and done in that area. But it's not an easy task.
No.
It's extremely difficult. The stress level is very high. It's constant attention. I'm very fortunate that I can spend some time just looking around and saying hello to my old friends, like you. But,
well, if you were in a position of you know, control now, whether by being the governor, I'm offering you the governorship, John. I know you can do it.
Please.
Or the chair of the department, the director of agriculture. What would you do to move this effort ahead? What would be your high priority steps?
I would first call for identification of all the potential commodities that could be had here.
Whether they're actually being grown or not.
That's right. And then look at the economics of each of these areas, and look at what it was needed so they could have some fruition. Find out how much costs each of these things would cost the public or the whole economy, and what are the markets. And if we cannot get goods to the market, be it the market here in Honolulu or the market elsewhere, then study the economics of it. Now, you mentioned earlier about the ocean stuff. Well, we're finding out too in the ocean activity that the ahi is getting maybe less and less, and maybe it's overfishing some very large fish, not necessarily by Hawaii people, but it could be from others fishing in the ocean. And how do we fix that? These are very extremely difficult things.
Yeah, they're extremely difficult, and I think what I get out of this is that, in general, the community, the state has to pay more attention to this. All of it has to be higher in our priority list going forward.
That's true, and it is. I mean, if you talk to some of the various people in the business, they understand.
Maybe there's a new generation coming up.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
John Farias, former chair of the Board of Education. Now we're talking about new technology for agriculture in Hawaii. We're not done with this discussion. Thank you very much, John, for coming.
Thank you. Thank you.
Aloha.
Thank you. Aloha.
Again soon.
Thank you very much. Thank you.